They thought they could humiliate a black student with impunity. But when her father finds out what happened, he intervenes, and the consequences are far from what the abusers expected. Don't forget to subscribe to catch the next one. Where are you watching this from? Let us know in the comments. Tara adjusted her suitcase in the trunk and took a deep breath as she stood at the entrance to her new beginning, the gates of Preston College. The campus buzzed with students moving into dorms, meeting old friends, or scrolling through their phones. The warm autumn air was filled with chatter, anticipation, and possibilities, yet Tara felt a knot of nervous energy tighten in her chest. This was it. A new chapter. A fresh opportunity to make her mark. She glanced at her reflection in a nearby window. She was tall, her posture straight, exuding quiet confidence, with smooth, dark skin that gleamed under the sun. Her thick hair, twisted neatly into braids that fell to her shoulders, framed her sharp features. Bright, expressive eyes, full lips, and a determined gaze. She wore a simple, sleek outfit, a cream-colored blouse tucked into high-waisted jeans, her favorite, white sneakers carrying just the right amount of scuff to hint at comfort over showiness. She had chosen this look deliberately, professional but not too formal, just enough to make a good impression. The knot in her stomach tightened again, and Tara closed her eyes for a second, taking in a slow, deliberate breath. This was her chance, she reminded herself. All the sacrifices, all the hard work, this was what it had been for. She was determined to thrive here, no matter what challenges came her way. But deep inside, she also knew the road ahead would not be without obstacles. As she approached her dorm building, she noticed several girls sitting on the steps. They paused their conversation as Tara walked by, exchanging glances, smirking in that way that didn't need words to convey judgment. A tall, blonde girl seated in the center eyed her with thinly veiled disdain before flicking her hair over her shoulder. Tara forced a polite smile, but the other girls only exchanged smug looks with each other. Their laughter followed her as she walked past. "Great," Tara muttered under her breath. Day one, and she was already being sized up. Inside the dorm, the atmosphere was lively. Doors were propped open, girls darting between rooms, unpacking and chatting animatedly. Tara found her assigned room and was relieved to see she had it to herself. The space was small but cozy, with pale cream walls, a single bed pushed against the far wall, and a desk nestled under the window. She set her suitcase on the bed and started unpacking, letting the hum of the activity outside wash over her. As she folded clothes into the closet, Tara's phone buzzed. She smiled at the name on the screen. Dad. "Hey, sweetheart." His warm, familiar voice greeted her. "How's my college girl doing?" Tara sank onto the edge of the bed, feeling a little lighter at the sound of his voice. "It's good," she said slowly, "just settling in." There was a pause on the other end. "How are the other students? Making any friends yet?" Tara hesitated. She wanted to say yes, to reassure him, but the truth was, she could already sense an undercurrent of tension. "It's only the first day," she said instead. "I'll figure it out." Her dad's voice softened. "You'll be fine, Tara. Just be yourself. You've worked hard to get here. Don't let anyone make you feel like you don't belong. They don't know who they're dealing with." A small smile tugged at her lips. "Thanks, Dad. I needed that." "You've got this, kid. And remember, tough times don't last, but tough people do." His words settled into her heart like a warm blanket. She knew that, no matter what, her father believed in her. And that meant everything. That night, as the campus grew quieter and the excitement of the day gave way to exhaustion, Tara lay awake in bed, her mind churning. The looks, the sneers, the cold laughter, they weren't unfamiliar. She had faced this before, in high school, where whispers and side-eyes trailed her through the hallways. Back then, it had stung. It still stung now. But Tara had learned to wear her pain like armor, building walls high enough to keep most of the hurt out. She thought back to one particular incident from high school. A group of girls had once spread a nasty rumor about her, and she'd come home in tears. Her father had sat her down, wiped away her tears, and said, "Tara, some people won't like you just because you shine too bright for them. But that's not your problem. It's theirs. You just keep shining." That lesson had stayed with her, though it hadn't made things any easier. And now, at Preston, it felt like she was stepping right back into the same arena. Different place, same game. But Tara wasn't a scared high school girl anymore. She had come here for a reason, and she wouldn't let a few sideways glances scare her away. She was here to grow, to succeed, and to prove, mostly to herself, that she belonged. The next morning, Tara navigated her first classes, carefully noting every detail. The way the professor addressed the class, the seating dynamics, who spoke up and who didn't. She quickly realized she wasn't the only one being subtly excluded. There were others, students of color, international students, who sat on the edges, their contributions often overlooked or dismissed. It stung, but it also steeled her resolve. She wasn't alone in this. During lunch, Tara scanned the cafeteria, balancing her tray in her hands. She noticed a few familiar faces from the dorm, but the same smirks and dismissive glances followed her. She spotted an empty table near the window and made her way there, sitting down quietly. "Hey," a voice interrupted her thoughts. Tara looked up to see a girl with curly red hair and a friendly smile standing by the table. "Mind if I sit?" Tara nodded, grateful for the company. "Sure." "I'm Olivia," the girl introduced herself, sliding into the seat across from her. "You're new here, right? I saw you at the dorms yesterday." "Yeah, first day," Tara replied, offering a small smile. "I'm Tara." Olivia seemed genuinely friendly, but Tara noticed how her eyes flicked nervously toward a nearby table where a group of girls sat. The same girls from the dorm steps, led by Belinda. Olivia's friendly demeanor wavered slightly, as if she was debating whether being seen with Tara was worth the risk. "So, how are you liking it so far?" Olivia asked, her tone casual but slightly hesitant. Tara gave a non-committal shrug. "It's a work in progress." Olivia chuckled softly, but her glance shifted again toward Belinda's table. Tara could see the silent pressure Olivia was under. Even the friendly ones were afraid. As the day wore on, Tara attended more classes, quietly observing and absorbing everything. She participated when she could, but she noticed the subtle ways her input was brushed aside. Professors acknowledging her answers with lukewarm smiles, students pretending not to hear her comments during group discussions. It was as if the space she occupied was invisible. But Tara wasn't going to let herself be invisible. Not here, not anywhere. That evening, after unpacking the last of her things and arranging her room just the way she liked it, Tara sat by the window, watching the campus lights flicker on one by one. She pulled out her phone and sent a quick message to her dad. Made it through day 1. Let's see what day 2 brings. A response came almost immediately. "You've got this. Proud of you already." Tara smiled at the screen, her heart lighter. No matter what came her way, she knew she could handle it. The sun hung low in the sky as Tara made her way across campus the following day, her mind focused on the upcoming lectures. She had managed to push the awkwardness of her first day aside, determined not to let small things throw her off course. But no sooner had she stepped into the main quad than the tension she thought she'd shaken off started creeping back. Near the fountain, at the center of the campus, Tara spotted a familiar group of girls. Belinda, with her platinum blonde hair perfectly curled, stood in the middle of the group like she owned the place. Her posture screamed confidence, but the smug look on her face gave her a menacing air. Tara could feel the weight of their stares even before she was close enough to hear their conversation. "Here she comes," one of the girls muttered under her breath, just loud enough for Tara to hear. Tara kept her eyes forward, deciding to ignore it. This is what they want, she reminded herself. They want a reaction. As she passed by, she could feel their eyes burning into her back, the hushed whispers and giggles chasing after her like gnats. She could only imagine what they were saying. But what really irritated her wasn't the laughter. It was the fact that Belinda and her group seemed to thrive on it. It wasn't the kind of laughter that hinted at lighthearted fun. It was the kind that made her feel like she didn't belong. "I don't get it," Belinda said loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. "How does someone like her even get into Preston? I thought they had standards." The comment stung, but Tara refused to acknowledge it. Not worth it, she thought, pushing open the door to her next class. She took a seat near the middle, trying to keep her focus on the day ahead, but the words lingered, like a stain she couldn't scrub off. Over the next few days, the subtle hostility from Belinda's group grew more pointed. They never missed an opportunity to make a comment, roll their eyes, or find new ways to belittle her, though it was always done with a veneer of plausible deniability. But despite their best efforts, Tara kept her cool. She had dealt with bullies before. This wasn't her first time. She reminded herself that she was here for something bigger than their pettiness. Still, she couldn't ignore the way their behavior seemed to ripple through the rest of the student body. By the end of the week, Tara started noticing that more students were beginning to distance themselves from her. People who had been perfectly cordial on the first day now avoided making eye contact in the hallways. Group projects became awkward affairs where Tara was either left out of the conversation or assigned to the least significant parts. Even casual conversations over meals were strained, with classmates offering her only the bare minimum of politeness before turning their attention elsewhere. The isolation was palpable, and with every passing day, the air around her felt a little heavier. One morning, after a particularly grueling history lecture, Tara returned to her dorm room to find that something was off. The door was ajar. Her heart skipped a beat as she stepped inside cautiously. Her bed was unmade, the covers tossed carelessly across the room. Several of her books were scattered on the floor and her closet door hung open, her clothes disheveled. For a moment, Tara stood in the doorway, frozen. Had someone broken in? Her eyes darted around the room, quickly assessing what might be missing. After a quick scan, it didn't seem like anything had been stolen, but the message was clear. Someone had been in her room, and they had wanted her to know it. Anger and frustration bubbled up in her chest, but along with it came a cold dread. It didn't take long for Tara to piece together who was behind this. Belinda and her group had taken their harassment to the next level. Now they were making it clear that there was nowhere she could escape their scrutiny, not even her own space. Later that evening, as she sat alone in the common area trying to focus on her assignments, Tara's phone buzzed with a notification. She glanced at the screen, and her stomach dropped. Someone had posted a picture of her on one of the college's student forums, a picture taken earlier that day with a caption that read, "Guess it's charity season at Preston." Her fingers hovered over the screen, but she didn't click on the post. She didn't need to. The intent was clear and the words cut deep. Charity? As if her place here was some kind of handout? The sense of isolation she'd been feeling intensified. She wasn't just being excluded socially, she was being openly mocked. And, with the growing support that Belinda and her clique seemed to have, Tara was beginning to wonder if anyone would stand with her. The next day, as Tara sat in her usual spot in the cafeteria, a familiar face approached her table. Olivia, the friendly redhead she'd spoken to earlier, gave her a quick smile before sitting down. "Hey," Olivia said softly. "I saw that post online. Are you okay?" Tara met her gaze, unsure of how much to say. Part of her wanted to shrug it off and pretend it didn't bother her, but the truth was she was tired. Tired of pretending, tired of holding up a brave face. "I'm fine," Tara lied. "Just the usual." Olivia hesitated, looking over her shoulder at the table where Belinda and her friends were sitting. Their eyes flicked over to Tara and Olivia before they quickly resumed their conversation, as if Tara and Olivia were nothing more than a passing curiosity. "Look," Olivia began, her voice low. "I know it's tough right now. Those girls, they've done this to others before. It's just, they have so much influence here. People are afraid to go against them." Tara nodded slowly, already knowing that was the case. She had seen the way students who were once friendly toward her had quickly backed off. Fear could be a powerful thing. "But that doesn't make it right," Olivia added quickly. "If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here." The gesture was kind, and for a brief moment, Tara felt a flicker of hope. Maybe not everyone was against her, but even as Olivia spoke, Tara noticed how her eyes kept darting toward Belinda's table. "Even the friendly ones are scared?" "Thanks," Tara said quietly. "I appreciate it." The days continued, with Belinda and her group finding new ways to get under Tara's skin. It started with small pranks. Her notes would mysteriously disappear from the library, or her seat in lecture halls would be reserved by someone else's belongings. But soon, things escalated. One day, Tara returned to her locker to find a crude note taped to the door. "Why don't you just leave?" The note wasn't signed, but it didn't need to be. The handwriting, the tone, it all pointed to Belinda and her clique. Tara crumpled the paper in her hand, her pulse quickening. It wanted her to quit, to give up, to feel like she didn't belong. That night, as she lay in bed, Tara found herself staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. Could she endure this? The pressure was building, and the constant harassment was wearing her down. She had always been strong. Her father had raised her to be resilient, to fight against injustice. But here at Preston, the fight felt different. It was subtle, but relentless. And she was starting to feel like she was fighting it alone. But, despite the growing frustration, Tara knew one thing for certain. She wasn't going to let Belinda win. She had come to Preston with a purpose, and no matter how hard things got, she wasn't going to let a few bullies take that away from her. The next morning, she woke up with a renewed sense of determination. She had dealt with girls like Belinda before. She wasn't going to let them break her now. If they wanted a fight, they were going to get one. Tara knew she needed a plan. She couldn't face this alone, but she also couldn't rely on the administration. They hadn't shown any interest in addressing the harassment she was experiencing. No, she would need to fight back on her own terms. And with that decision, Tara felt a shift within herself. The fear and anxiety that had been building up were still there, but they were now accompanied by something else: resolve. She wasn't just here to survive. She was here to thrive, and no one, Not Belinda, not her clique, not anyone was going to take that from her. It was one of those crisp, clear mornings, the kind that gave a false sense of calm before chaos. Tara stood in front of her closet, eyeing her options for the day. Today was different. She had an important presentation in one of her toughest classes, and she wanted to leave a lasting impression, not just with her words, but with her entire presence. Her hand hovered over the clothes hanging in neat rows before settling on a pristine white skirt she hadn't worn yet. It was sleek, professional, and paired perfectly with the soft lavender blouse she had picked out earlier. As she dressed, Tara looked at herself in the mirror, feeling a rare moment of confidence. Today, she was going to focus on her goals. Nothing else mattered. The morning seemed to pass uneventfully as Tara navigated the crowded halls, a little distracted but focused on her lecture. As she left the building and walked toward the cafeteria for lunch, she noticed Belinda and her group huddled by a tree near the main walkway. Their eyes followed her as she passed, their laughter carrying through the air like nails on a chalkboard. Tara resisted the urge to look back, reminding herself of her promise not to let them get to her. But she couldn't shake the uncomfortable feeling that something was about to happen. After lunch, Tara hurried to the ladies' room to check her appearance one last time before heading to her next class, where her presentation awaited. She glanced at her reflection in the mirror, smoothing out her skirt and adjusting her blouse. Everything seemed perfect. She looked composed, ready to face whatever the day had in store for her. As she stepped out of the restroom and made her way down the hallway, she heard a faint giggle behind her. Tara glanced over her shoulder, her gaze meeting the sneering face of one of Belinda's friends, Kelsey. There was something unnerving about the way Kelsey smirked at her before turning away to join the others. Tara shrugged it off, walking briskly toward her next class. Whatever it was, she wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of caring. It wasn't until she entered the lecture hall that Tara noticed something was wrong. The room was full of students settling into their seats, preparing for the presentation. But as soon as she walked in, the atmosphere shifted. Conversations paused, heads turned, and the usual pre-class chatter was replaced by low whispers and barely contained snickers. Tara frowned, suddenly feeling self-conscious. What's going on? She wondered. As she approached her seat near the front, she heard a burst of laughter from the back of the room, followed by a few scattered giggles across the hall. Tara's heart raced as she glanced around, trying to understand what was happening. Her mind flashed back to Kelsey's smirk in the hallway, and a sickening feeling began to form in the pit of her stomach. Then she heard it. "Hey, Tara, you dropped something." The voice came from behind her, one of the guys who usually sat in the back, his tone dripping with sarcasm. She turned slowly, confusion clouding her face. The boy pointed at the floor, and Tara followed his gaze. That's when she saw it, the bright red stain streaking across the back of her white skirt. Her breath caught in her throat. No, no, no. Tara's hands flew to her sides, feeling the sticky, cold residue of ketchup seeping into the fabric. Panic surged through her veins as the realization hit her. Someone had spilled, or poured, ketchup on her skirt without her noticing. How? Her mind raced back to the hallway, to the moment she passed Kelsey and the others. It must have been then. A wave of mortification washed over her, and for a split second, Tara considered running out of the room, just disappearing before anyone else could notice. But it was too late. The laughter had already spread like wildfire. "Tara's got some color on her today," a voice called out from the back, sparking more laughter. Her cheeks burned with humiliation. Her heart pounded painfully in her chest, and her first instinct was to flee, to get away from the stares, the laughter, the mocking comments that now filled the room. but her legs felt frozen, like they had turned to stone, rooting her to the spot as the waves of embarrassment washed over her. Forcing herself to move, Tara stumbled toward the front of the class, hoping to salvage what little dignity she had left. She had never felt more exposed in her life. The white skirt, now ruined by the bright red stain, seemed to scream for attention, marking her as the target of the cruel prank. When she reached her seat, Tara finally caught a glimpse of her reflection in the small glass panel of the lecture room door. The ketchup stain was impossible to ignore, splattered grotesquely across the back of her skirt like a deliberate attempt to humiliate her in the most public way possible. Her hands shook as she sank into her chair, eyes burning with the sting of unshed tears. "This can't be happening," she thought, feeling the overwhelming urge to scream or disappear altogether. But Tara swallowed the rising lump in her throat, doing her best to compose herself despite the growing sense of dread that threatened to overwhelm her. The room was still filled with giggles and whispers, and even as the professor entered the class, he seemed oblivious to the undercurrent of cruelty. Tara stared down at her notes, barely able to concentrate as her mind raced. She had to make it through this class, but the thought of standing up again, of walking to the front of the room with all eyes on her, seemed unbearable. The next hour dragged on painfully, every minute feeling like an eternity. Tara remained glued to her seat, barely registering the professor's words, her thoughts consumed by what had just happened. Her mind was a whirl of humiliation, anger, and frustration. How had they managed to pull this off so perfectly? When the lecture finally ended, Tara was the first to leave the room, her movements quick and determined. She kept her eyes down, avoiding the smirking faces of her classmates as she bolted toward the exit. The laughter and whispers followed her, echoing in her ears like a cruel reminder of her public disgrace. As soon as she stepped out of the lecture hall, Tara rushed to the nearest restroom, her hands trembling as she pushed open the door. She stood in front of the mirror, staring at the reflection of the girl who now looked so small and defeated. The ketchup stain on her skirt was as bright and glaring as ever, mocking her. A choked sob escaped her throat, and Tara quickly clapped a hand over her mouth, refusing to let herself break down completely. Not here, not now. She had already given them enough satisfaction. After what felt like an eternity, Tara finally composed herself enough to leave the restroom. Her face was pale, her hands still shaking, but she kept her head high as she walked back to her dorm. She passed by several students in the halls, but she didn't care about their stares anymore. All she wanted was to retreat to her room and block out the world. Once inside her dorm, Tara locked the door behind her and leaned against it, her chest heaving with a mixture of frustration and shame. How did this keep happening? Why did they hate her so much? Was it her confidence? The way she held her head high despite everything? But as much as she wanted to scream, to lash out, she knew she couldn't let them win. That's what they wanted, she reminded herself. They wanted her to break. She took a deep breath, wiping away the few tears that had managed to escape, and pulled out her phone. Her finger hovered over her contacts list before she finally hit the call button. "Hey, Dad," she said quietly when her father answered. He could tell something was wrong immediately. "Tara, what's going on?" For a moment, she considered brushing it off, pretending that everything was fine. But she couldn't. Not this time. "They got me again," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Belinda and her friends. They won't stop." There was a pause on the other end, and then her father's voice, steady and calm as always. "I'm sorry, baby. I know this is hard." Tara let out a shaky breath. "I don't know what to do. I'm trying, but they won't leave me alone." "I know it feels impossible right now," her father said softly, "but you're stronger than they are, Tara. You always have been, and you're going to get through this. You've got your head on straight, and that's something they can't take from you. Don't let them see you sweat. You fought through worse before, haven't you?" Tara swallowed, her chest tightening. "Yeah." "Then you'll get through this too." After hanging up the phone, Tara sat on the edge of her bed, her mind swirling with a mix of emotions. Her father's words gave her strength, but the exhaustion weighed heavily on her. She knew she couldn't let this continue, not like this. Something had to change. In that moment, Tara made a decision. She wasn't going to keep letting them walk all over her. She was done playing the victim. It was time to fight back. The sun had set by the time Tara reached her dorm room after the humiliating incident. She sat on her bed, her arms wrapped tightly around her knees, rocking slightly as the weight of everything pressed down on her. The day had been one of the worst she had ever endured. Every sneer, every laugh echoed in her mind like a broken record. It felt endless. Her phone buzzed beside her. She glanced at the screen, the name Dad flashing across it. She hesitated for a moment, but finally picked it up, pressing the phone to her ear. "Hey, Dad," Tara whispered, her voice still shaky. "Sweetheart." His voice was soft, full of concern. "What happened?" Tara tried to speak, but the words got caught in her throat. The tears she had been holding back started to spill over. She clutched the phone tighter, her breath hitching as she fought to steady herself. "It's bad," she managed to say through the lump in her throat. "They won't stop. I don't know what to do." There was a pause on the other end, as if her father was taking a moment to choose his words carefully. When he spoke again, his voice was firm but kind. "Listen to me, Tara. You've been through tough times before. Remember high school? Remember how they tried to tear you down back then, too?" Tara sniffed, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "Yeah, but this feels worse. It's everywhere. Social media and class, I can't get away from it." Her father let out a slow breath. "I know it feels like that now, but you're stronger than you think. We didn't raise you to let bullies win, did we?" Tara shook her head, even though he couldn't see her. "No." "That's right. And you don't need me to fight your battles, but I've got your back every step of the way. Understand?" Tara nodded, feeling a spark of something warm inside her, a flicker of hope. Her father had always been her rock, the one who reminded her who she was when she felt lost. "So, here's what we're going to do," her father continued. "You're going to document everything, every insult, every prank, every time they try to knock you down. Screenshots, photos, witnesses, whatever you can get. And when the time is right, you'll show them that you're not someone to mess with." Tara sat up straighter, wiping away the last of her tears. The idea gave her a sense of control she hadn't felt in days. "You think that'll work?" "It's not just about whether it works. It's about you standing your ground. You don't let them define who you are. You show them who you are." The next morning, Tara woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. If they thought she was going to back down, they were dead wrong. She spent the morning going through her phone, taking screenshots of every rude comment Belinda's group had posted about her. She compiled everything, pictures, messages, social media posts, into a neatly organized folder. Tara also began paying closer attention to everything that happened during the day, when Belinda or her friends whispered behind her back. Tara took mental notes. When someone moved her things or posted something nasty online, she documented it. She knew it wouldn't stop the bullying right away, but having control over the narrative gave her some peace of mind. She had a plan now, and that was more than she'd had before. That afternoon, Tara received a text from her father. "Proud of you. You've got this." She smiled at the message, tucking her phone into her bag before heading to her next class. There was still tension in the air. Belinda's group wasn't going to stop just because Tara had decided to fight back. In fact, she could tell they were irritated by the fact that she hadn't crumbled yet. As she walked past them on the way to class, she caught a glimpse of Belinda whispering to Kelsey, both of them glancing her way with matching smirks. Tara straightened her shoulders, meeting their gaze without flinching. The look on Belinda's face shifted slightly. A flicker of annoyance, maybe even frustration. Good. Let them be frustrated. Tara wasn't going anywhere. That evening, Tara sat at her desk, going over her notes and preparing for her upcoming classes. For the first time in a while, she felt a sense of calm settle over her. She had a plan, and she wasn't alone. Her father's words echoed in her mind. "You show them who you are." As she worked, she thought back to her time in high school, when things had been just as tough. She remembered a moment when she had wanted to give up, to let the bullies win. But her father had been there then, too, telling her to keep going, to keep fighting. And she had. She had made it through then, and she would make it through now. The next few days were challenging, but Tara stuck to her plan. She collected every piece of evidence she could, quietly building her case. At the same time, she focused on her studies, throwing herself into her work with a renewed sense of determination. She wasn't just going to survive at Preston, she was going to thrive. Her persistence didn't go unnoticed. Some of the other students, seeing that she wasn't backing down, began to show subtle signs of support. A classmate offered her a seat when the usual spots were taken. Another handed back her notes that had gone missing the previous day. It wasn't much, but it was enough to remind Tara that not everyone was against her. One evening, as she sat in the library going over her notes, Olivia approached her table carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Hey," Olivia said, setting one of the cups in front of Tara. "Thought you could use this." Tara gave her a grateful smile. "Thanks." Olivia sat down across from her, fidgeting slightly with her own cup. "Listen, I just wanted to say, I think it's really brave what you're doing. Not everyone would have the guts to stand up to Belinda." Tara shrugged, though the compliment meant more to her than she let on. "I'm just trying to get through the day." "Well, if you ever need backup, I'm here," Olivia offered with a small, hesitant smile. Tara felt a warmth spread through her chest. For the first time since arriving at Preston, she felt like she might not have to face everything alone. "Thanks, Olivia. That means a lot." By the end of the week, Tara felt like she was finally gaining some ground. The pranks hadn't stopped entirely, but the power Belinda held over her seemed to be weakening, and for the first time in a long time, Tara felt like she was in control. As she sat on her bed that Friday night, going through the folder of evidence she had compiled, Tara felt a surge of confidence. She was ready. The next time Belinda and her friends tried to pull something, she would be prepared, and she wouldn't be facing them alone. It didn't take long for Belinda to realize that something about Tara had changed. Tara was no longer shrinking away from their taunts, and her calm, composed demeanor only fueled Belinda's anger. Tara's refusal to break, to show fear or retreat, was a direct challenge to everything Belinda had built her power on. The pranks didn't stop. They escalated. One morning, Tara found her social media flooded with messages. As she scrolled through her phone, her stomach dropped. Someone had edited a humiliating video of her, clips of her ketchup-stained skirt from the lecture, overlaid with mocking commentary, laughing emojis, and cruel captions. The video was shared across several student group chats and forums, quickly gaining traction. Tara's chest tightened, her fingers gripping the phone as anger boiled in her veins. She felt the weight of it all, the relentless bullying, the constant pressure, the isolation. It wasn't just about her anymore. The people watching, commenting, and sharing were complicit in her humiliation. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to focus. No more reacting. It's time to act. That afternoon, Tara reached out to her growing circle of allies. Olivia sat with her in the library along with two other students, Jordan and Maya. Both had their own reasons for disliking Belinda's clique. Jordan, an international student, had been ostracized by the same group last semester, and Maya had once been friends with Belinda before realizing how toxic the friendship was. "We need more people on board," Tara said, her voice steady but determined. "This isn't just about me anymore. Belinda's been doing this for too long, and it needs to stop." Jordan leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "I've seen her get away with stuff for months. The professors don't care, and most students are too scared to do anything." "That's the problem," Olivia chimed in. "Everyone's afraid to stand up to her." Tara nodded, her gaze hardening. "We need to make it clear that we're not afraid anymore." Over the next few days, Tara and her small group of allies began working quietly behind the scenes. They gathered statements from other students who had been bullied or harassed by Belinda and her clique. Some were reluctant to speak up, but with a bit of encouragement and the promise of anonymity, they started sharing their stories. At the same time, Tara continued compiling her own evidence. Every comment, every post, every prank was carefully documented and organized. She knew she had to be thorough. Belinda was good at covering her tracks, and the administration wouldn't take action without solid proof. The tension on campus grew as word spread that Tara was building a case against Belinda. Rumors swirled, whispers filled the halls, and the atmosphere felt like a powder keg ready to explode. One day, while Tara was heading to her history lecture, Belinda confronted her in the hallway. The clique gathered behind her, their arms crossed, smirks plastered on their faces. "What do you think you're doing?" Belinda demanded, her voice sharp and filled with disdain. Tara met her gaze evenly, refusing to back down. "I'm standing up for myself." Belinda's eyes narrowed. "You think you can take me down? Good luck with that." Tara gave her a small, calm smile. "We'll see." The moment stretched out between them, the air thick with tension. Belinda's smirk faltered for just a second, a flicker of uncertainty she couldn't quite hide. Tara saw it, and it gave her strength. Later that day, Tara posted a detailed account of her experience with bullying on the college's student forum. She didn't name names yet, but she laid out everything she had endured since the first day. The post was raw, honest, and unapologetic, and within hours it began gaining traction. Students started commenting, sharing their own experiences with bullying and discrimination at Preston. Others reached out to Tara privately, thanking her for speaking up and offering their support. Her story was resonating, and the tide was beginning to turn. The following day, Tara walked into her lecture hall to find the usual group of students gathered at the back. But something was different. The sneers and whispers were still there, but they lacked the same bite. Belinda's power was slipping, and everyone could feel it. Tara took her seat near the front, her shoulders back and her head held high. She wasn't invisible anymore, and she wasn't alone. That evening, Tara and her allies gathered in the common room to finalize their plan. They had gathered enough evidence, and the time had come to present it to the administration. "This has to be airtight," Tara said, scrolling through the neatly organized folder on her laptop. "We can't give them any reason to dismiss this." Jordan leaned in, nodding. "We've got everything. Screenshots, videos, witness statements. They can't ignore it." Maya crossed her arms. "It's about time someone held Belinda accountable." Tara glanced around the room, gratitude swelling in her chest. These people were standing with her, and that meant more than she could put into words. The next morning, Tara sent an email to the dean's office, requesting a meeting to discuss the harassment she had endured. She attached the folder of evidence, along with statements from other students. It was a bold move, one that could have serious consequences, but Tara knew it was the right thing to do. She'd come too far to back down now. The campus buzzed with anticipation as word spread about the upcoming meeting. Students whispered in hallways, speculating about what would happen next. Some supported Tara, others sided with Belinda, but everyone knew that something big was about to unfold. Belinda tried to act unfazed, but Tara could see the cracks in her armor. The once confident smirks didn't come as easily, and the whispers behind Tara's back grew quieter. Belinda's power over the student body was slipping, and she knew it. Tara stood at the edge of the quad that afternoon, watching as the sun dipped low on the horizon. She felt a strange sense of peace, as if the weight she had been carrying for weeks was finally beginning to lift. Her phone buzzed with a new message. It was from her father. "Proud of you. Keep going." Tara smiled, tucking her phone into her pocket. The fight wasn't over yet, but she was ready for whatever came next. The morning of the disciplinary meeting arrived with a heavy sense of anticipation in the air. Tara sat at her desk in her dorm room, staring at her reflection in the mirror as she prepared for what was about to come. Her heart pounded, but she forced herself to remain calm. This was the moment she had been building toward, the culmination of weeks of gathering evidence, of enduring the harassment, and now, finally, holding Belinda accountable. Outside, the campus buzzed with whispers about the upcoming meeting. Everyone seemed to know something big was about to happen. Tara's post on the student forum had stirred up a storm, and many students were eager to see what the administration would do. Would they finally take action against Belinda, or would they brush it under the rug like so many times before? Tara took a deep breath, checking her folder one last time. It was all there. Screenshots of social media posts, videos of the pranks, testimonies from other students who had been victims of Belinda's bullying. She had everything she needed. Now it was up to the college to act. Her phone buzzed on the desk. It was a message from her father. "You've got this, Tara. Proud of you, no matter what happens." She smiled, feeling a surge of strength wash over her. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about everyone who had ever been bullied, harassed, or made to feel small, and she wasn't going to let them down. The meeting was scheduled to take place in one of the large conference rooms in the administration building. As Tara walked across campus toward the building, she felt the weight of dozens of eyes following her. Everyone knew why she was headed there. Some students gave her nods of encouragement, while others whispered to each other, their expressions unreadable. When she arrived at the building, Olivia, Jordan, and Maya were waiting for her by the entrance. "You ready?" Olivia asked, her eyes filled with both concern and support. Tara nodded, clutching the folder of evidence to her chest. Yeah, let's do this. They entered the building together, walking down the long, sterile hallway toward the conference room. The sound of their footsteps echoed off the walls, adding to the growing sense of tension. Inside the room, the college's administration had gathered. The dean, several senior faculty members, and representatives from student services. Belinda sat at the far end of the long table, her expression calm but her eyes cold. Her clique wasn't with her this time. She was on her own. Tara took a deep breath as she sat across from Belinda, her allies flanking her on either side. The room was silent for a moment, the weight of what was about to happen hanging in the air. "Thank you all for coming," the dean began, his voice measured. "We're here today to address some serious allegations regarding harassment and bullying within the student body. Miss Roberts," he turned to Tara, "you've brought forward evidence of a sustained campaign of bullying against you by Miss Caldwell and others. We'd like to hear your account." Tara nodded, her hand steady as she opened the folder in front of her. This was it. Over the next hour, Tara laid out everything, the harassment, the pranks, the public humiliation, and showed the administration the evidence she had meticulously gathered. The screenshots of the cruel social media posts, the videos of the ketchup prank, and the messages from other students who had suffered at the hands of Belinda's clique. As she spoke, Tara could feel the tension in the room shift. This wasn't just a case of petty pranks anymore. This was a clear pattern of bullying, one that had gone unchecked for far too long. Belinda sat in silence, her expression unreadable as Tara presented her case. But Tara could see the flickers of frustration in her eyes. For once, Belinda wasn't in control. When Tara finished, the dean turned to Belinda. "Miss Caldwell, do you have anything to say in your defense?" Belinda shifted in her seat, her carefully composed mask starting to crack. "This is ridiculous," she said, her voice laced with contempt. "Tara's just overreacting. It was all harmless fun. I mean, it's college. People joke around. She's making a big deal out of nothing." Tara's heart pounded in her chest as she listened to Belinda downplay everything. Of course, she would try to dismiss it as a joke, but the dean didn't seem convinced. He glanced at the evidence in front of him, flipping through the pages. "Harmless fun doesn't usually involve public humiliation and targeted harassment, Miss Caldwell." Belinda's face flushed red, her composure slipping further. "It's not like I was the only one involved. Everyone does stuff like this." The dean raised an eyebrow. "That may be, but you were the leader of this group, and as such, you bear responsibility for your actions." For the first time, Belinda's eyes widened slightly. The realization that she might actually face consequences was starting to set in. Tara's allies, Olivia and Jordan, also provided their testimonies. They spoke of how they had witnessed the bullying firsthand, how Belinda's clique had terrorized others, not just Tara. It wasn't just about one incident. It was a pattern of behavior that had hurt countless students. By the time the meeting neared its end, the atmosphere in the room had shifted. The evidence was undeniable, and the administration couldn't ignore it any longer. Belinda's reign of terror was coming to an end. As the meeting concluded, the dean stood, addressing both Tara and Belinda. "Miss Roberts, thank you for your courage in bringing this to our attention. Bullying and harassment have no place at Preston College, and we will be taking appropriate disciplinary action." He turned to Belinda, his expression stern. "Miss Caldwell, you and the individuals involved in this harassment will face suspension pending further review. We will also be implementing new anti-bullying policies to ensure this kind of behavior doesn't continue." Belinda's face paled, her lips parting as if to protest, but no words came out. The reality of her situation had finally sunk in. Tara remained silent, her heart racing as the weight of the dean's words settled over her. It was over. As the administration filed out of the room, Belinda shot Tara one last glare, her eyes filled with venom. "This isn't over," she hissed before storming out of the room. Tara watched her go, feeling a strange mixture of relief and exhaustion. She had won, but the fight had taken more out of her than she realized. Her friends gathered around her, their faces filled with pride and relief. "You did it," Olivia said softly, her hand resting on Tara's shoulder. "It's over." Tara nodded, a small smile tugging at her lips. She had stood her ground. She had fought back, and she had won. But more than that, she had made a difference. The college was going to change because of what she had done. And that, more than anything, made all the pain and struggle worth it. As they walked out of the administration building, Tara felt lighter than she had in weeks. The weight of the bullying, the isolation, the fear, it was all starting to fade away. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, and she pulled it out to see a new message from her father. "Proud of you, kiddo. You did it." Tara smiled, her heart swelling with a mix of pride and relief. She had done it. She had stood up to her bullies, and she had won. And now she could finally move forward, free from the shadows that had haunted her since she first set foot on campus. The following weeks felt like a fresh start. Tara walked across campus with a new sense of freedom, her shoulders lighter, her steps more confident. Belinda and her clique were gone, suspended after the disciplinary meeting. The weight of their constant harassment had lifted, and the campus felt different now, calmer, more welcoming. The fallout from the meeting had sent shockwaves through Preston College. For the first time, students were openly talking about the bullying and harassment that had gone unchecked for so long. Tara's story had opened the floodgates, and others began to speak up, sharing their experiences and demanding change. The administration, shaken by the publicity surrounding the incident, wasted no time in implementing new anti-bullying policies. Workshops on inclusion and harassment prevention were introduced, and a task force was formed to ensure that students felt safe on campus. Tara's fight had sparked a movement, and the changes were tangible. One afternoon, Tara sat in the quad with Olivia, Jordan, and Maya, enjoying the rare moment of peace. The sun was shining, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the large oak trees that lined the campus paths. "You know," Olivia said, sipping her iced coffee, "I think you might have started something bigger than you realize." Tara smiled, glancing around the quad, where groups of students sat in clusters, chatting and studying. The tension that had once hung over the campus had faded, replaced by a sense of camaraderie. For the first time in a long time, Tara felt like she belonged. "Maybe," Tara replied, her voice thoughtful, "but it wasn't just me. You guys helped too." Maya leaned back on the bench, her arms crossed, a satisfied smirk on her face. "Yeah, but you were the one who had the guts to stand up to Belinda. That took some serious courage." Tara shrugged, feeling a little bashful under their praise. "I just did what I had to do." Olivia smiled, her eyes warm. "Well, whatever you did, it worked. Things are better now. Safer." Jordan, who had been quiet for most of the conversation, nodded in agreement. "You made a difference, Tara. People are talking about what happened. They're not afraid to stand up for themselves anymore." Tara looked down at her hands, feeling a swell of pride. This is what she had wanted all along. Not just justice for herself, but change for everyone. And now it was happening. Later that week, Tara was invited to speak at a college event about student rights and the importance of standing up against bullying. The event was held in the main auditorium, and as Tara walked to the stage, she felt a surge of nerves. The room was packed with students, faculty, and even members of the administration. She took a deep breath as she approached the podium, her heart pounding in her chest. This was her chance to share her story, to inspire others to stand up for themselves. "Good evening, everyone," Tara began, her voice steady despite the nervous energy coursing through her. "When I first came to Preston, I thought it would be a fresh start, a place where I could focus on my education and make new friends. But instead, I found myself the target of relentless bullying. It wasn't easy. There were days when I thought about giving up, about leaving this place altogether." She paused, looking out at the audience. "But I didn't, and I didn't because I realized that leaving wasn't the answer. Standing up for myself was. And now, because of that decision, I'm here, talking to all of you about what it means to fight back, what it means to refuse to be silenced." The room was silent, all eyes on Tara as she continued. "It's not easy to stand up to bullies. It's scary, and it feels like you're all alone. But you're not. There are people who will stand with you, people who believe in you, even when it feels like the world is against you. And I want everyone here to know that if you're going through something similar, you're not alone. You can fight back, and you can win." A wave of applause swept through the room as Tara finished her speech, her heart swelling with emotion. She had done it. She had used her voice to make a difference, and the response was overwhelming. After the event, as the crowd began to disperse, the dean approached Tara with a thoughtful expression. "Miss Roberts," he said, his tone respectful, "I just wanted to personally thank you for your courage. You've made a significant impact on this campus, and I hope you know how proud we are to have you here." Tara nodded, grateful for his words. "Thank you. I'm just glad things are changing." "They are," the dean agreed, "and a lot of that is thanks to you." As the weeks passed, Tara found herself becoming more involved in campus life. She had been offered a position on the newly formed Student Rights Committee, a role that allowed her to advocate for others who might be going through the same struggles she had faced. It was a role she embraced wholeheartedly, knowing firsthand how important it was to have someone in your corner when things got tough. Her circle of friends expanded, and soon she wasn't just a girl who had stood up to Belinda. She was a leader, someone people looked up to. The isolation and fear that had once gripped her seemed like a distant memory now, replaced by a deep sense of belonging. One evening, Tara sat in the Student Union building, surrounded by her friends, laughing and sharing stories. The campus, which had once felt like enemy territory, now felt like home. She had fought for her place here, and she had earned it. As the semester came to a close, Tara received a message from the dean's office. It was an invitation to attend a private ceremony where she would be awarded a special recognition for her contributions to improving the campus environment. Tara felt a swell of pride as she read the message. Her hard work, her courage, and her persistence had paid off. The ceremony was small but meaningful. Tara stood before a gathering of faculty and students, accepting the award with grace. As she looked out at the familiar faces in the audience, she realized just how far she had come since that first day at Preston. Her father, who had flown in for the event, stood in the front row, beaming with pride. After the ceremony, he hugged her tightly, his voice filled with emotion. I knew you had it in you, kiddo. I always knew." Tara smiled up at him, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "Thanks, Dad. I couldn't have done it without you." As the semester drew to a close, Tara sat in her dorm room reflecting on everything that had happened. She had faced bullying, isolation, and humiliation, but she had also found strength, friendship, and purpose. She had fought back and won. Her phone buzzed on the desk, and she picked it up to see a new message from the student committee. "Would you consider being the student representative for next year?" Tara smiled, her heart swelling with pride. This was only the beginning. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss the following stories. There are even more exciting stories ahead. Be sure to watch the other videos on the channel. There are a lot of interesting things there too. Subscribe, otherwise you'll miss something important.